We are gonna call to order the Whately Select Board meeting of Wednesday, June 11th. It being now 6 p.m. With the local elections just happening yesterday, this is the opportunity for the Select Board to vote on reorganization of roles and responsibilities. So we'll open up to if there's any motion for would like to be the chair.
I would like to move Joyce Palmer Fortune as chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Joyce will be chair. If there is a motion for vice chair,
At this point, Joyce is the chair.
I can chair.
Okay, take over.
Okay.
Go for it.
I would entertain a motion for vice chair.
Okay, so
That-
I would move that Fred be vice chair.
Second.
That's right, I fall all the way down the left.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'd entertain a motion for clerk.
Move Julie Wagner as clerk.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, great. We were reorganized.
Yay.
Congratulations to us, and Natalie's right here on time. Let's take care of the two really easy things. Are there any comments on the meeting minutes from our previous meeting?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And were there any comments on the vendor payroll warrants?
No.
Okay. Public comments, is there anyone who'd like to provide comments up to 3 minutes per person on items that are not on the agenda?
That is a public comment we received
Oh.
via email.
Okay. All right, I'll read that one out. Hi, folks. I suggest the select board work proactively with our local Massachusetts legislatures. Very appropriate here, to attempt prioritizing fixing the 1-lane Christian Lane Bridge. Currently numbered 3090 on the replacement list. I'm so happy it's only 4 digits there. Many of our regional neighbors have done so successfully with having multiple bridges rebuilt or replaced in a timely manner. The bridge is coincidentally next to some of the town's several-year-old double telephone poles. And this is from Dan Denny. And double poles, that's fighting words. So that's one public comment. Thank you, Dan. I see someone named Kathy is on Zoom. Kathy, do you have any public comment to make?
She comes up later. in the
She's she's later in the meeting?
meeting.
Okay,
The feasibility study.
for the feasibility study. Oh, I didn't see her name on the agenda. Okay, but she's still public. She could still,
This is true.
okay. Anyone else?
Somebody by logging it right now.
Oh, okay.
If you've joined by phone and you wanted to make a public comment for an item that is not on the agenda, just let us know.
Okay. Okay, I'm not seeing a response. Oh, there we go. Hi, public comment? No, I guess not. All right, well, let's call it public comment closed. Fourth item on the agenda, we have an appointment. We have our state representative, Natalie Blay here. I guess just chat about whatever we want to chat about, really.
Pretty much.
Do you have something you wanna?
If I could, I'm
Yeah,
just,
sure.
just gonna, where do you want me?
No,
Anywhere?
you can sit at the table, would be nice.
Okay.
That's
I'm
fine.
just gonna give you all,
It's okay if you, I can't have a
I
copy.
have 4. I ran out of staples. Is what happened. So I have one that is barely stapled
It's
together.
okay. You have enough?
So this is, every year. I get together with all of the select boards in the first Franklin district, which includes 17 select boards. It's just an opportunity to touch base, see what's on your minds. Talk about any legislation that's pending, anything that is that you're hearing about from your constituencies that are our shared constituencies. And go through the 40 bills that I've offered in the legislature, plus approximately what will be 20 home rule petitions, including the dissolution of the Whately Water District, which did have a hearing, I think, last month. So we're working on that one for the town. So it's really just an opportunity to sit down, and I'm really grateful for you making time for me, as I know these meetings are always, so thank you. And I'll turn it over to you. This is really your time, and if you have questions, comments, anything, that's why I'm here. And it was a great commute. Spectacular commute
Nice.
from South Deerfield, yes.
Yeah.
You passed 3 houses?
Way better than going to Boston. I'll take this any day. So, if it's helpful, if I can give you a couple of highlights, what we're seeing in the legislature. I know that we've been hearing from communities about, transportation infrastructure. The governor has proposed a multi-year transportation bond bill for chapter 90, which is great. It does include the recommendations of a task force that she convened. So her recommendation is that we would include $200 million for chapter 90 annually under the traditional funding formula, which really doesn't help local communities because it's based on economic development / jobs, mileage, and population.
Yeah.
Doesn't really help us. But there's an additional $100 million that she's proposed on top of that $200 million that is solely based on mileage. That does help us. So that is a recommendation from the governor that we are considering now in the legislature. I suspect that we'll be taking that up soon. I hope we'll be taking that up soon. But that is a positive thing for our communities. In the House budget, you've heard me talk about unpaved roads, the fact that so many of our municipalities have a high percentage of unpaved roads compared to paved roadway mileage in our communities. The House budget did include $10 million for a new unpaved road program, which is extraordinary. I'm really hopeful that we can get that through conference committee into the governor's desk for signature, because that would also really help our communities. We just had a hearing on rural school aid, rural school bill. We had extraordinary amount of testimony come in from communities across the Commonwealth in support of that piece of legislation. It was proposed to be funded at $16 million set aside, which is, compared to when I came in, when it was $1 million. That's, a big jump over 7 years. We still have a little ways to go before we get to the proposed $60 million where we're supposed to be at. So we're going to continue to fight for that. We have good news on HIP. I know a lot of you are big proponents of the HIP program. Both the House and the Senate versions and the governor, we're all fighting to get that number up. Right now, we're looking at $40 per household based on what we're seeing. And that's a good thing, and we still need to be fighting for that. As this session, I'm now the chair of the Joint Committee on Agriculture. So we've been able to really lift up our local food systems, which has been a real honor for me. We had livestock on the common last week, which you would have thought that, it was the best thing that Boston Common had ever seen, which was amazing.
I'd seen it a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It was really.
Many years
it
ago,
was
it was
really-
last back up.
It was great. It was really, really wonderful to have so many colleagues, and it was for a number of interns. It was their first week interning in the State House. So we were able to have a lot of interns go over to the Common for me to talk to them about crop rotation and cover crops and all of the things that we know here. But not everybody does. So that was a really incredible day for us too. So those are just some of the highlights that I wanted to flag for you tonight, but if there are questions or comments or concerns, I wanted to.
If I can I ask you what the status on the reforms payments in lieu of taxes?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm. So that bill has not yet had a hearing. Senator Comerford and I have reintroduced that bill based on the original findings that were introduced by Auditor Bump. So Auditor Bum proposed a formula change. That formula change is included in our legislation. We're also, in this legislation proposing that there is an additional an adder for ecosystem payments. Because there has to be a recognition that what we're doing out here in the western part of the state, when it comes to water, our forests, you know, all of the things that are happening out here. It matters to the Commonwealth when we're trying to meet our climate goals. So we've reintroduced the bill with that original formula, and we've added some additional language that would include an ecosystem payment that would help to level the playing field for communities here in Western Massachusetts. I don't know if you've looked at the payments, but some of our communities are getting $15 per acre, and if you look at the eastern part of the state, it's up towards $1,000 per acre,
Yeah.
which is.
We tend to be below, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah, all of the communities in Western Massachusetts are.
Yeah.
So hopefully. You know, we've been able, there were two things that were identified in the auditor's report. The first was that there was a $15 million funding gap. When we first came in, $15 million between what communities were owed and what the Commonwealth was paying. We were able to close that gap. Very good, very important. But as we're putting more money into this program with a flawed funding formula, our communities are getting less of the more. So we really have to dig down and figure out how to change the formula so that communities in Western Massachusetts are getting payments that are equal to what our partners.
Yeah, and
Eastern
they-
part of
and
the
they-
state are
And
getting.
make the reopening the funding formula doesn't make it worse. Which
Yeah.
has been known to happen.
So this, and the language was really, it really is a partnership with the administration. To say, yeah, it's prescriptive in terms of what we should be looking at. And it is saying that we need to work with the administration to figure out what the best formula is moving forward. So that is the language that we have proposed. We'll make sure to reach out to you, and we would love your support, your testimony, to support that piece of legislation. It's long overdue. And it is all about regional equity.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I have some questions. I'll see if I can formulate them in a way that makes sense.
Okay.
You're on an agriculture
I'm the chair of the ag committee, yes,
chair of the
Yeah.
ag committee.
which is only in its second session. It was peeled off from the environmental resources and agriculture committee as of last session, and now it's so.
What are you seeing statewide in terms of federal cuts to farm subsidies, and how is that affecting our farmers?
Yeah.
Across the state and particularly in this area?
It's certainly impacting our farmers.
Yeah,
It's impacting our farmers and our fisheries. The Joint Committee on Agriculture also considers matters pertaining to fisheries. We believe fishers are farmers.
yeah,
It's all in this larger whole. And yes, the cuts have significantly impacted our farmers as they are trying to, you know, install solar, for
Yeah.
example, right? That is one of the federal programs that is significantly impacted and that our farmers have unfortunately had to bear the brunt of. So we are certainly cognizant of what's happening at the federal level, which is changing from day to day or minute to minute. And to the extent that the state can be responsive to what's happening at the federal level, we will do everything that we can. But there is clearly no way for the Commonwealth to be able to fill the gaps that we're seeing across the board, from the federal level. Whether it's agriculture or Medicaid or whatever it is that we want. Even if we're talking about the rainy day fund in Massachusetts, we have an incredible, and thanks to the House and Senate leadership, we have, I think, a $8 to $9 billion rainy day fund, which is wonderful. That is where we should be. But the rainy day fund is not intended to supplement, to you know, fix gaps that the federal government is supposed to be providing to the Commonwealth. So that's not the fix. So we're gonna do everything we can, given we have to have a balanced budget at state level. We can't go into debt. It's not like the feds, right?
So
We have, yeah, exactly, just like you.
We could borrow from China.
Yeah, we have to stay within this very strict limit in terms of what we can spend. So we are receiving and reviewing what we are hearing from Washington, and are certainly doing everything that we can, but there is no way that the state can fill in for cuts and freezes that we are seeing. Across, and I'm not just talking about ag, I'm talking
Yeah.
about everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you expect that the cuts and freezes, as they affect farms, will affect food production over the course of either this year or coming years?
I think that farmers face uncertainty every single day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When it comes to the weather.
Yeah.
Or seed prices.
Yeah.
Tariffs. Or labor.
Yeah.
Which we've also, so
Yeah.
there is a lot of uncertainty
There's a
in
lot of
farmers'
inputs.
lives. I don't know how they do what they do every single day, because they are masters at business, at marketing, at planting things that grow. And also finding a way to support our communities
Yeah.
by, you know, providing extra food to food pantries and food banks. What our farmers do is extraordinary. So I guess they're gonna do everything that they can do. And the Commonwealth, to the extent that we can, and to the extent that I can, as I'm considering the 60 bills before my committee. I'm gonna be doing everything that I can to be supporting farmers across the Commonwealth. The real issue when we talk about farms here in the Commonwealth is the fact that they make 97 cents on the farm. I mean, it is a losing proposition for farmers.
Yeah.
And yet they do it every day. Because they love what they do. And they care about our communities. They protect our land. They're protecting our view sheds. They are, you know, imagine if, you know, for tourism, if somebody came in and saw a farmland, a field that used to have cows is now a housing development. Like, what farmers are doing for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is, in my mind, undervalued. And so that's sort of my job in the State House, is to talk about that, is to talk about why we need to be doing more for farmers. And we saw this in the storms of 2023.
Yeah.
The fact that the Commonwealth came through with direct cash assistance to farmers, to my knowledge, we are the only state in the nation that has done that, rather than low interest loans. That is something that we should be proud of, and we should continue to be building on. We have an omnibus farm bill that I've offered the senator to come forward, that brings a lot of this next generation farming in. You know, how are we getting the next generation of farmers in?
Yeah.
How are we supporting existing farmers? How are we looking at the environmental issues that they are addressing every single day? And then we have a 21st century farm report that should be coming out in a couple of months as well. That will also help to inform, hopefully, a larger piece of legislation to support ag in the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joyce?
Oh, well. I drove down Christian Lane to get here. You
Yes.
probably didn't have to pick up this morning. And Dan had already commented on our nice little one-lane bridge, which is number, let's just round it to 3,100 on the bridge list. And I don't really know how to get it to move up the list, but I think that is something that that if we can get any help with that, that's
Sure.
something we need to.
I'm happy to talk with the Mass Highway District Administrator. I've already made a note of this.
Okay, I'll even give you a copy of Dan's email.
But I mean, when we're talking about small bridges, and culverts.
Yeah,
It-
well,
those
that's the
are-
next, the
those are
next
two
thing I
things.
drove over was a culvert that needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
And so that, and I don't remember exactly where that one stands on the assistance we need to do that.
We just submitted, I think last month, a grant application to finish the design
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, we're still design.
Yeah,
We're still,
we're gonna finalize the design, yeah.
and so, but the One Lake Bridge is not even at the design. There's like, no,
No, because that,
that has to be done at the state level.
yeah,
because
that's a separate process,
It's just a little bit too big to call a culvert. Please call it a culvert.
right?
Wouldn't that be?
Well, and I have to say, you know, the governor was out in Conway. We
Yeah.
were there. With the Secretary of Transportation, there is an effort, they have a larger bond bill
Yeah.
to provide additional funding for small bridges and culverts,
So
clearly.
it may, so if that
Of
comes
that.
through, there may be,
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
it may be. And then there's just another thing that I don't know, what you can do about it, but I wanted to make sure you're aware of it. We have another drainage problem on Christian Lane where the origin is really on the private property, but it floods the road, floods people's yards and basements and so on. And we had worked with NEMA and, but I think the money was actually coming from FEMA. I could have some of the details wrong. And that was one of the things that got cut by the federal government. So we are not gonna be able to fix that particular water problem.
Yeah.
As well, and I'm sure there are other problems on other roads, and just because I drive in Christian Lane.
Yeah.
I think about all of
This is
those.
mitigation funding that you got.
Yeah, through brick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a privately owned drainage, but we applied for that. And it was, the award was to do an analysis, determine where the actual issue it was. And then provide the recommendation on the remediation
On the
or solution,
solution.
whatever, yeah.
How
Um,
much was it for?
63,000.
yeah, it was definitely 5 digits. I think it was around,
It was in the
it was
60s.
in the 60s, yeah.
Could you just send me information on that if you could, in that way? You know, if there's a way for us to
Yeah.
help the town, you know, supplant that funding in lieu of the federal dollars that would come through. But I mean, to try to explore every available option. Again, recognizing that we can't possibly
Right,
That's right,
do everything it's supposed to be doing right now, but.
yeah. Yeah, and I guess that's.
But I hear you, and the brick program is awesome. It's so important, and so to see funds like this being cut is.
And I guess just a kind of bigger picture things that I worry about, is that. It kind of comes down to what you just said, is the state is not gonna be able to absorb. All the federal cuts to things people depend on in Massachusetts, so it's probably going to get. Harder in the coming years, not easier. To do things like fund schools equitably, fund the pilot thing equitably, fund the transportation equitably. And so I guess what I would offer is that I pay attention to the emails you send them saying, hey, send comments here, send comments there.
Thank you.
And keep those, keep them coming. And that just, sometimes we don't know how to advocate effectively.
Yeah.
So then that's something that I look to those emails, but I still get the ones from Joe Comfort, even though she's not my senator.
Yeah, same.
When that tells us how to advocate, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you on that, and certainly. You know, we try to be as communicative as we can when these bills come up. To make sure that we're reaching out, not only, you know, through those emails, but also, you know, at the town level, because if it. It is, now that you're able to testify in writing virtually or in person.
Hmm, Yeah.
There's so many ways for people's voices to be heard without having to drive in Boston.
Yeah.
And just, you know, even a short email or a letter, a note, whatever it happens to be to the committee when these bills are being heard are so impactful. For the rural schools bill last week, we were able to get a panel of students from Mohawk Trail Regional School Districts to come in. They testified before the committee. So to have those,
And
to really center on the students that are most impacted by funding cuts and what you're grappling with every single day with town budgets. Finance committee, school committee, while trying to do all of the other things that you're trying to do. To have those student voices in a committee hearing room, it's pretty spectacular. And they were amazing, they'd driven out, they had practiced everything they were gonna say, they had their scripts. They got up there and the poise, that they had, was extraordinary. And I'm really grateful. We had several, people here from Western Massachusetts, both in person and virtually and in writing.
I want to thank you for introducing the act to try to establish a municipal and public safety building authority. And so it's what the status or prospect.
It hasn't yet had a hearing.
Because small towns just have a real problem.
Yes,
Funding
yes,
necessary buildings.
yes, we're asking for horror stories.
Yes.
Last session, we compiled a booklet, that we presented to the committee. And it was 100 pages of testimony from communities across the entire Commonwealth. I think we have wait lists, but I'll double check. Pictures, stories, we're trying to continue to add to that book.
I think on our picture at the bottom, it says, please don't show this to OSHA.
Yes, there is that too. But, some of our public safety facilities in the First Franklin don't have restrooms. Like, we have turnout here being snored out in the open.
We can't buy modern.
Yeah.
Machinery because it is.
Yes,
I
exactly.
do, our highway department can't buy the equipment they want because it won't fit.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And that costs us more because we have to buy.
You have to buy customized equipment. Yes, so I heard this in Asheville. They had to get a customized piece of equipment because it wouldn't fit within the garage that they had.
And we can't buy the equipment that we need, that we should have and want to have, because we don't have a place to put it.
Right, right. No, I hear you on that, and it's something that I've flagged in my testimony for that piece of legislation. There's a new chair on the House side, so we're working on bringing them up to speed, but I can tell you that last session, we brought the public safety chair out to the district, and it made an impact in his brain. He definitely heard what we were talking about, especially when he got out to Asheville and Conway and didn't have health service. We had told them to print out maps. And so.
No,
I just worry when anything like that gets established in Massachusetts, and the money gets sucked up by suburban
Yeah,
places as opposed to the very small communities. in the
yeah,
West.
we were pretty careful in this language. I believe there's a rural carve out for exactly that reason. Because what we're seeing in formulas and grants right now is that they don't see us. They don't, either we're not eligible or we're not competitive. Then there's grants and formulas. So we are working with the administration to lift that up and say, we really need to be thinking about rural communities and how we don't want handouts. We just want to be competitive. We want to be able to be competitive. And right now, we're not.
And it's just hard for a small town of 1,000 or 1,500 people in the western part of the state to be competitive with a small suburb of 25,000 in the eastern part of the state.
But yeah, especially when you're looking at your tax base.
Right.
is mainly-
yeah, and where we may not have, every single employee we have.
Yeah.
Has stuff they got to, we don't have a lot of like, oh, you can take somebody that it'll take 3 weeks to write a grant on something.
Right.
That, and relatively, we're relatively well off in the sense that we have our community development administrator, but a lot of small towns don't even have that, and so it's the person who's really doing everything else in the town is trying to also figure out how to write this grant so that it'll be effective.
It's a lot of communities in Western Massachusetts.
Yeah,
It's the highway administrators writing grants.
right, Exactly.
It's not their area of expertise.
yeah,
Their area of expertise is fixing roads. And so I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
Joyce, I really do, and that is something that we've been lifting up in terms, the Mass Works program has been transformational in that way. In terms of providing technical assistance, some feedback, some response to allow rural communities to be more competitive. Mass DOT has also just put out sort of a gateway like that, which has also been super helpful. So to the extent that the administration is able to do that, I think that they are. But Brett, to your point, you know, it doesn't make up for having a full-time grant writer on the
Right.
staff doing that every single day. I'm always like, just give them the money. We know that you are going to spend this money well. We know that you are going to stretch every dollar to the extent that you can. But you just don't have, you know, the capacity to be able to apply for all of these grant programs. You just don't. And so to the extent that we're able to work with formulas and the grant programs to be able to make them more, make rural communities more eligible, more competitive. And the formula side, just send the money our way without even having to apply in the first place. That's really what we should be working on. Anything else?
Jim,
No, I think.
I think you all have my number.
Pete,
Yes, absolutely.
I think you got my number.
yeah, I think you have.
Here. Oh, no, I have.
No, that's okay, I can get a copy from.
But call, email, anything that you all need, and I'll make sure to lean on you, and yeah, pieces of legislation that are moving up. So it would be super helpful to have your disability in person.
I just want to thank you also
Thank you.
for being as responsive as.
Oh my gosh,
Yep.
you kidding me?
Yes, no,
I'm
called you
so
several
lucky.
times About this, and you called back and I've been like, oh my God. I just heard about that second.
Yeah.
Sometimes it ends up being like 7 o'clock at night when I actually.
Yeah, no,
have to call, but
You do, and I very much appreciate it,
Thank you.
I'm sure we all do.
thank you. I appreciate you all, really. I mean, the time that you all put in for this community is incredible. And your partnership is amazing. So please stay in touch. Let me know if there's anything we can do to help. I'll keep you posted on Whately, the water district dissolution. Just texted the chair a couple of days ago, just make sure that this was on his radar screen. And I'll make sure to keep you posted on when that is.
No.
Okay, cool. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you
guys.
so much
Good to
for
see
coming.
you.
Yeah, good for you.
Take care.
Okay, so moving on to new business. First item is, annual town meeting, any follow-up items from the June 3rd meeting or, open discussion, any follow-up actions that we need to do from annual town meeting? And I.
See, went pretty well, and I
Yeah.
have no questions or concerns afterwards.
Thank you. I don't think there's anything to follow up with on.
No, I
You got
just-
that.
Wanted to give you the opportunity in case
Yeah.
there's any discussion, but basically all the actions are following standard operating procedures for planning the PAG or getting our budgets now in line, ready for
Yeah.
July 1st. Capital projects will be able to get started after July 1st, but yeah,
Yeah, I guess the only comment I'd make is kind of in hindsight, it kind of took at least Paul and Taya by surprise that that article that we thought we needed for that, that putting our new personnel
Step
policy on town meeting that, that didn't get decided until way later, because at the time we told the finance committee, yeah, this is gonna be on town meeting. It was like 2 or 3 weeks later when town council said, no, you don't do that. And probably giving them a heads up would have been, but I think that sort of took them by surprise, and that was not intended.
Right.
At least I certainly didn't attend, but I also remember to say, oh, hey, we should give Paul a call. So I think that went a little bit unsmoothly, but other than that, I don't think there's anything I would.
Not worry about, have you heard anything from the tenant of the Sugarloaf shop regarding the rejection of that bylaw?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I feel for it, you know, but a bylaw change is not really that problem, so.
Are we contacting Paul Antaya or is it giving him a call, saying, oops?
That discussion has been had, but another FinCom member, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we move on then to the next item under new business. Item B is on assessing, we need to exercise a 1-year extension on the RRT contract for assessing services. Now that we've gone to that regional group, we have to keep, I guess, renewing it every year.
What, sorry, what was your question?
Number B.
Yes, so the statement you just made.
We have to keep renewing that.
Well,
So
the
you're
current
good, that's it.
contract that you have that is in effect for this fiscal year, in that says that you have the option for 2
Oh.
additional 1-year terms to
Oh,
extend, so it's
And
only
you-
for a maximum of 3.
At that cost.
yeah,
And no changes to the agreement. The agreement cost and services stay the same,
Oh.
so
then,
you have the option each year, just for two years, the
1 year.
first one being this year, to extend that agreement.
The
The Board of
assessors are happy
Assessors.
with the service they've been getting?
Yes, the Board of Assessors did meet to make a determination whether or not we should extend, and they did agree to that.
okay,
They agreed to recommend that we extend it.
no. Any other questions?
No.
Entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve a 1-year extension of the current contract with Regional Resource Group for assessing services to the town.
Second,
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, great. Yes, the center school. There's apparently, let's see, is to review, discuss and vote, sorry. To review, discuss and vote on proposals for feasibility analysis services of the former school building. Previously, we didn't have anybody who responded to feasibility study RFP, but now we do.
Correct, because it's outside of the RFP.
Oh, it's outside of the RFP. Well, I'm not sure.
Sure. Judy, I'll give a little bit of background, but feel free to step in if you'd like. So essentially this particular item doesn't require RFP process. Although we did go out to RFP, we didn't receive any responses. However, it's under the threshold to require it.
Oh,
The center school committee did reach out to a consultant that the town has worked with in the past. Does this type of analysis work, feasibility analysis work? So a proposal has been put together by McCabe. Kathy McCabe or McCabe Enterprises, which meets the requirement and the scope that the committee would like to see as far as the feasibility options there are. It also includes a structural engineering analysis. All of the costs for that are covered by the town meeting capital appropriation, the grant that we received, as well as CPA funds that were approved by the CPC for the structural development. So at this point, we have the proposal here. We also have Kathy on hand in case there are any questions, but Judy from the Center School Committee is also here if there's any particular questions, or Judy, if you wanted to
Yeah,
give any
Judy,
more
yeah.
specifics.
You wanna add anything to that, Judy?
Well, I think Pete did a great job. Can you hear me? Pete did a great job summarizing. I think those of you, Julie especially, is familiar with Kathy from the Exit 35 study group, where she prepared what I thought was an excellent market analysis, which is why when we didn't get responses to the RFP, we turned to her for her proposal. I sent the proposal to Ted Harvey, who is an economic development planner at FERCog. He reviewed it and he thought it was comprehensive. I think I reviewed it. I think it's comprehensive. We didn't have time to get it to the center school for review, but since I'm the one who's been doing most of the feasibility study work, we went ahead and put it on the agenda for your approval tonight. I would highly recommend it. I think she's caught our needs quite well. And one correction to Pete, the town's contribution to the grant match came from the CPA, not from capital budget, but so the
That's
there's
better.
17,000 from the CPA. So the state is paying half of it.
I have a question on page 134 of McCabe's proposal. The total fee is 31,000, which is not fully covered by the 214s. Can you address that?
The CPC has something called an administrative expense budget that they can use to pay for supplemental expenses on CPA projects. And last year we knew we needed a structural analysis, and we got a $4,500. We got the CPC to vote $4,500 out of their administrative expense budget for a structural analysis. So that will cover the extra $3,000 in the proposal.
Okay, the engineering services.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Would love to hear from Kathy. And she's ready.
Yeah, do you have anything to add to that, Kathy?
Well, I just appreciate the opportunity and thank Judy for her confidence and compliments. And I've worked for Whately before, so I look forward to working with you. And I think the center school project feasibility study is something I like to do. So I'm anxious to have the opportunity to work with you again.
Thank you.
Do you have anything, Fred? No. I entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve the proposal as submitted by McCabe Enterprises dated June 5th, 2025.
Second,
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Awesome. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy and Judy.
All right. Next item is energy storage systems. We've got a proposed general bylaw and a proposed zoning bylaw. In some sense, the general bylaw is the one that's of most concern to us because we are the ones who have to decide whether to move forward with that. The planning board is the group who reviews the zoning bylaw and would bring it forward. Either way, they would have to be approved at a town meeting of some sort. So that's why both of them are included. And what I'm hoping tonight is that you have questions. And that we can, hopefully with some help from Judy, address the questions you have about it.
I have a question about decommissioning. Well, two things. You probably noticed that Natalie has an act relative to solar and battery decommissioning and recycling.
Yes, yeah, at the time, I don't think we were not aware.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
great. That's happening concurrently. Of a question about decommissioning. It looks like the language about decommissioning was struck from the general bylaw, but is included in the zoning. Is that wrong?
I can address that.
Yeah, go ahead, Judy.
Originally, I did a lion's share of the drafting of this. And originally I had put the decommissioning part in the general bylaw because it seemed logically to me. The general bylaw is really designed to handle ongoing maintenance and review after the siting process. And I thought, well, decommissioning falls there. As we discussed it, we realized that both the select board and the planning board and the ZBA are familiar with decommissioning plans because it's historically been a part of the siting requirements because there wasn't this second review process. So we decided that it should the decommissioning preparation of the decommissioning plan should remain with the planning board and the ZBA as part of the siting approvals. And I think all of those documents in that section where you saw the strikeout, Julie, are documents that will be prepared in conjunction with the ZBA special permit and the planning board site plan approval. And they're actually there, so the licensing board is aware that they need to expect these, they need to be familiar with them, but they will be prepared before the license application is being reviewed. Does that?
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. And I had a second question about why the decommissioning plan only applies to tier 2, because of tier 1, I don't know, to my layperson's eyes, seems large enough that you'd want a decommissioning plan for that as well, if it's something that could go up to 2 acres in size.
Well, partly I'm no longer on the planning board, so I can't comment on what they've done or I don't even know what draft you have.
This was something that we discussed, and I from the start said we shouldn't have a distinction between tier 1 and tier 2. They should both have decommissioning plans, but I was not the one drafting, so the person drafting to keep it.
Then it falls back to me. At the time we drafted that tier 2, we thought that the smaller facilities really didn't need a decommissioning plan. The 2 acres is reduced by setbacks, so it's considerably smaller once the actual site of the building is smaller than that. But I think that's a comment that you should make to the planning board as they continue working on their zoning bylaw.
And I agree with you, Julie, that's a comment I will make.
Yeah, if I was a
I don't-
neighbor, I would want to know that they have plans for decommissioning.
Right, because someone could walk away from that and the town is stuck with, even if they lose the property to taxes by walking away from it, who needs a toxic mess to clean up? And
Right.
so that's.
So a comment should go to the planning board, you say?
Yes.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
I've got one question on the licensing board. Why constitution of that committee has changed from members of different committees to simply the select board?
Oh. Agility, essentially.
I'm thinking expertise or familiarity.
Yeah, I think, because the select board already does licenses. We do all the other licenses in town. And if you had to, someone make an application for license, then try to pull together all of those people, it's just gonna be a harder obstacle. For everybody involved. And so keeping that was a way of simplifying. Honestly, the thing I turned into Pete already had those, didn't show the earlier version, because what you're seeing is different versions. We had discussions and decided that wasn't the way to go.
Okay.
So I don't know why all of those edits are showing up here. Honestly, but it was really to try and make it a little more simple and try to have it be a little less onerous on us to be able to review a license.
If
So
I could add to that, I think it was at least the committee's sense that the select board could really call on people from the various committees for their opinions without requiring them to sit through all the meetings.
Yeah, so we could certainly call on the fire chief's expertise.
Okay.
And so
that was gonna be my next question is, before a pending license comes before the select board, will everything have gone through appropriate approvals with fire chief and planning and the zoning and conservation, et cetera? Or will there be a channel of approvals before it gets to a license, or do we have to do all of that
Yeah.
when we're considering the license?
yeah, they don't have to go through zoning and ZBA, but maybe
Well,
Judy's.
it's part of the zoning that they get approval from the fire and safety people. And I think also the water commissioners.
Correct.
So the answer is yes. I think
Okay,
the way this was structured is all the approvals to put the thing in place should be done before the licensing board gets the application. And then-
so this,
And then this just requires that you determine that, yes, in fact, you can document that that all happened.
got it, okay,
Okay.
thank you. The section about sighting and dimensional requirements. It says it shall minimize impact. Removal of trees should be minimized, etc. It doesn't necessarily say, unless I missed it somewhere else, which is highly possible, who evaluates whether those impacts are minimized.
I
Does
think you're on the zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Excuse me, does the Conservation Commission do that? Or
That's part of the site plan review that the planning board would do.
site plan review?
Yep.
Okay.
I've got it.
one important thing for maybe people being at home or looking at this later. This is not intended to regulate people having a home energy backup battery.
Right.
Because that's, yeah, so the minimum size is larger than any battery you would have in your home. So we're not trying to discourage or encourage either way, people having storage batteries in them. This is done clearly for a storage facility, not a residential based energy storage battery.
Or small commercial.
Yeah, or small commercial. So within the sizes that, I mean, the minimum size that this applies to is well above what you might have in a residential or commercial facility.
The zoning bylaw relies very heavily on the fire regulations, and I've forgotten the acronym FLPA. I didn't review that one prior to this meeting, but the chief suggested that we look at those as a way of determining sensible regulations. So the size and the water requirements. And when certain protections kick in are all based on the standard fire protection document that regulates batteries or energy storage siting. And I think that's helpful in dealing with state authorities as well as giving us a reasonable logic. And Chief Kennedy believes that they're very comprehensive, and from what I could tell in reading them, I think they definitely are.
And they would be updated more frequently than this bylaws.
Yeah.
So there's an advantage to, not only to, an advantage of reasonableness, that no one could accuse us of being unreasonable in our restriction of saying, hey, you have to follow these national safety standards. But it's also, as those develop, that's as those change over time,
Mhm.
getting more strict, getting less strict, whichever way things go. That we're tied to that, we're not tied to whatever number we happen to know, particular day that this gets passed.
I have only one other question, on the general bylaw under licensing, item 6. The licensing board shall review the operations and maintenance every 2 years. Is there a reason it's not annual?
I think we can do it annually as well. Because there will be an annual report. But if we miss one, we're not out of compliance with our own bylaw. But that's some flexibility. I don't know if there's another reason for that, Judy.
Well, I think the timing was one of the things that we felt maybe we needed your input on, but also what you're really looking for is major changes in either the fire protection laws or that the maintenance hasn't been done. You know, one real problem with these facilities is that they're relatively new. Nobody's sure how long they're going to last. You know, so you're looking for deterioration, and you will get an annual report. And I think if and also as you do a license, you can condition it so that if you feel it's a really big system, you want to look at it more often. But that is the kind of thing that if you feel that that's not appropriate, this is your bylaw to approve. We're just suggesting.
Okay. Well, I appreciate, as usual, the amount of work that goes into doing something like this. Thank you to everybody who's been working on it. I don't have any more
Yeah.
questions.
Any others for you?
No.
I think we don't have to take any action on this tonight. In fact, it would be good to hear more from planning board. My understanding is the planning board has a lot on their plate and they might be feeling a little overwhelmed with the first draft of this bylaw. And so that I don't expect that it's urgent for us to pass this. I think if we get a standalone battery energy storage system zoning bylaw that planning board wants us to put through, we should put through a matching general bylaw.
Mhm.
So it might be good to see what kind of changes or simplifications or what the planning board.
And there's also no urgency because this has to be approved by a special town meeting, which probably would not occur until sometime in the fall at this point.
At the earliest, yeah.
A question for Pete, I assume there has to be a public hearing?
No, the public hearing is required for zoning bylaw amendments, not general.
Okay.
Except when it's a local historic district bylaw for a general bylaw. But other general bylaws don't require a public hearing.
Okay. That helps.
There was, in my report, there is one additional related item which was raised, I believe in discussion during the battery energy. Whether or not a moratorium could be proposed.
Yeah, that was kind of after the town meeting. Offsides with the chair of the planning board, he suggested that that might be a way to move forward. But it looks like you looked into that a bit.
Yeah, so town council gave us a response or, basically legal background. And the fact that, these storage systems are protected under, section 3 of 40A. Which means we cannot essentially do it, we have significant, proof to demonstrate that there is an absolute need. And that there is health, safety and wellness issues that are readily apparent. And without that, we'd likely lose, if we put forward and adopted a moratorium, it probably would get rescinded by THE.
Yeah, I don't
Several
remember.
towns have had that happen.
Yeah,
So. Yeah, I remember we did that with the solar, but we were only asking for 6 months. On that to get a solar bylaw done. So I think, maybe like 6 months and nobody challenged it, so it never got. And so maybe that one was not, strictly speaking, kosher either.
possibly, but yeah, there is already actions by the AG.
Yeah. Yeah,
Turning down other moratoriums that were.
right. So. All right. Well, then this will come up again later. So if
Alrighty.
you have more questions, feel free to bring them up at any time. Anybody have anything else to say on this?
Just thank you, Judy.
Yes, thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Okay, next item, personnel appointment of a planning board and ZBA administrative assistant. This is like on every single agenda.
It is.
Yeah, yeah. I would entertain a motion here.
Oh, so I move that we appoint Gwendolyn Kimberly as the planning board and ZBA administrative assistant.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, great. Okay, next select board liaison updates, and we'll start from your end and hit this one.
The only thing I have is that we've got resumes in from the community development administrator. We selected 4 resumes for interviews. We've interviewed 1 so far. The other 3 are next Monday.
Okay, cool, great.
Let's see. Nothing for the water department. We haven't had a meeting for a while. Cindy Steiner writes, thank you so much to the board for approving unused sick time for my use while out on medical leave. She's got an acting director appointed while she's out on medical leave, as well as a substitute library associate, 2 substitute library associates. So she's grateful for the support of the town and has her position covered. Last thing is that the garden swap has happened twice and has been very successful. We get rained on almost every time. Last time we got poured on. But it
Because
is,
you do it on Saturday.
it's only because we do it on Saturdays. It is happening again this weekend, June 14th. Theoretically from 11 to 2, although we may break down a little early. We're not entirely certain this time of the quantity of things that we will have, but we're hoping to have some vegetable starts that can go in later in the year because it's later in the year. Some flowers and a potential combination of fruit and fruit plants from Nurse Farms.
Oh. Very good, yeah. Okay, I have 2 short items. One is the cable the cable franchise negotiating committee will have their first meeting on Friday. To get that process started. I don't expect it to be long or onerous, but at some point at the end of the process will be asked to sign a franchise agreement with Comcast. In which they agree to give us some money and we agree to let them sell us stuff on their own shopping network. And provide cable to the town. You'll know on the next selectmen's agenda, there's an update to the intermunicipal agreement for the South County Senior Center. And it only has 2 changes in it, so when you get that information, focus on the 2 changes. We're somewhere between now and then, we'll send it to get comments from council on those changes. But this is going to the boards of selectmen for all 3 towns. And if all 3 towns approve it, then it becomes a new IMA. It's got a new updated funding formula. And it updates the board to have selectmen or their designee plus an active senior center member on the board. So those are the 2 changes. So those will, that's coming your way from the South County Senior Center. And we're still looking for a permanent home. We actually were approached by someone who has a building that may actually work for us. But I don't want to say a lot about it because then you'll say, well, how much does it cost and what's in the lease or what's in the, can we buy it? You're gonna ask me all these questions, I don't know the answers. But it's actually a location that can work and a building that can work. So there's a lot of potential there. If so, we're gonna be coming back and asking for more money. So, but I don't wanna start rumors or anything like that. So that's it for me. But the door's open.
The birds hurt me. I mean, they must have like a nest right near the
Right
doorway or
above.
something.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. They can chime in.
As long as they don't fly in.
All right, town administrator updates.
Just a few updates. The community electric aggregation, at the previous meeting discussed the fact that with our electric supply, our aggregation plan, we do a multi-town, aggregation, bidding process that's overseen or supported through Colonial Power as our consultant. Our current supply contract runs through the end of this year, so generally work for community aggregations, you go out 6 months prior so that you can secure good rates. As of noon today, I can report that the multi-town did agree to our supplier and our term length. And then based on that, I then put in the 3 products that we will provide to residents based on the energy committee discussion, but again, this does not go into effect until January 1st, and all businesses and residents under the program will get information about it. The new supplier and what those rates are. The supplier is First Point. They are becoming a large community aggregation supplier in New England. And they did come in as the cheapest supply rate. We all agreed on the 34-month supply agreement as well.
34.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So we did go with the 3-year. Yes, 3-year less 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were all of them were always less 2 because they always wanted to end on April instead of not in April. Have us do our bidding in April.
So they're
that
gonna
they
end
going end in October.
Going,
Yeah.
you're right, and
Right.
October 31st.
Yes,
That's
yes.
right.
Um,
Oh, okay.
and our standard product will be lower than Eversource's current rate. That standard product being Mass Rec plus 31% national wind, so 100% renewable. There will be 2 additional optional products that ratepayers in the town will be able to select if they choose. Mass Rec's requirements plus 31% Mass Class 1 RECs, meaning renewables generated mass. And that is 0.01 cent per kilowatt higher than the basic or the standard service. And
Did you
then
say what the base, what the default was?
It is.
The rate,
0.13045.
okay,
The first optional product is 0.14068. And then the second optional product is 100% mass class 1 RECs. And that's at 0.15452, so about
Yeah.
2.5 cents higher than the standard.
Yeah.
But it means that all 3 products are 100% renewable. And our standard product, at the current time will be lower than Eversource's, supply rate, so we will still be saving money. So that agreement, that's been signed off, but yeah, again, everybody will receive mailers. I believe they do it, it's either 30 or 60 days prior to the change, so likely in November, December, everybody will see mailing information.
All right, then put that article in the scoop in September.
Yes. Just a note, our custodian that serves our town buildings and our library unfortunately suffered a stroke.
Oh,
He's doing well, he's completely fine, but does obviously need to take a couple months off as he recoups. When Keith comes back, we will determine how we will replace or supplement those services, but in the meantime, the library staff is handling their custodial services in their building. The highway department is assisting at the town hall, and then town office staff are handling the town offices. So we're covering it for at least for the couple weeks, and then Keith will be back and we'll figure it
we'll
out.
figure out a better one, yeah,
And I had wondered if we wanted to send him a card.
yeah,
He's a friendly guy when you see him
Yeah.
around, he's,
yeah. I wouldn't send him a card.
yeah.
I'm not sure that I recognize him, but I would be happy. to send
Oh,
him
I
a
see
card.
him at both the library and here sometimes.
I think it would be very, very grateful if you did something.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Sorry.
I throw in,
Or some,
I
something.
throw in flowers or
Acknowledge
gifts
it.
or computer,
Yeah, or about it, so.
you know. Yeah. So whose plate is that on, Jewel?
I could take care of that.
I would help you with as well.
Yeah, I will
Yeah.
contact you just to figure out.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Ask Jess.
Yeah. Call me, beat me.
Okay, cool.
On to other electric related things. Eversource is in the process of replacing outdated electric meters with new smart meters. That replacement process will not require any fee or charge from the town or for the town. So Eversource is gonna be doing this at our town properties over the summer, course of the summer. And one more electric related is in terms of the solar panel project here at the town offices. Part of that project requires replacing and upgrading the transformer out at the street front. That will happen this Friday. In order to do that, power needs to be shut off to the building. Thankfully, the town offices are open on Friday, so it will not impact town services. But it does mean if staff were to come in, or even if you were planning to stop by, just be aware that there will be no electricity in the building for a good portion of time. The highway department will be removing the shrubs around that transformer, and then after the new one goes in, they will replace the
Replace it.
shrubs. Yep. They essentially will be removing that tomorrow and recommending them Fridays after, so that they are.
oh, okay,
good.
oh, they're gonna be
Go
able,
right back
the
in.
same trucks,
Yes, yes, the same shrubs.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be saved.
that's good.
That's the intention.
All right. Do we have any items not anticipated? All right, I would entertain a motion to,
Next meeting, June 25th.
yep, next
6
is
p.m.
25th.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,